We are quite a little bit run out of time, so I invite you to eventually interact in the chat and also on our Discord channel that now I'll share with you in the chat. I'm very, 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 very thank you, the speakers of this amazing roundtable. I really enjoyed it, guys. Thank you very much for being here with us and have the opportunity to stay with you and listen to you. So thank you to Shantano, to Joel, to Pauline, and also to Alka that was not physically here, but she wanted to contribute so so greatly that we registered also a video. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much, Domenico. It was very wonderful. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to the panelists, Shantano and
Thank you. I invite you to stay with us for another like a few, because this is we have now the next speaker of today. It's very, very interesting. Believe me, guys. It's Francesco Postiglione, and I invite Francesco to join the floor. I don't know if Francesco is on the chat.
I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes, clearly.
And do you see me? I'm here.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, okay. Hello to everyone. I'm very, very pleased to be here today, and thank you, Domenico, for your wonderful, too kind presentation of me. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Francesco. Is a political philosopher, and he's going to address us a very interesting point that is global rights and global markets. So how to, like, in a way, connect these two concepts. But I don't want to discover anything. I'll let Francesco the floor.
Thank you very much, Domenico. I just made some slides to show in a few minutes, but I don't know if you can take them. I just put them on the Google Drive.
Sure, sure. So
okay, there are two versions. One is with Keynote, and the other one is PDF. So you can show the PDF if for you is simpler. Okay.
Okay.
In the meanwhile, if you agree, I will start. Okay.
Yes,
thank
yes,
you.
You can introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you all again. Someone of you here present, I just met in past occasions, and excuse me for my English. I hope it will improve in the few minutes. And what I'm exposing to you now, it's not so original. Someone of you has just heard me talk about this in this appointment in the Climate Social Forum in the past edition. So I don't want to be original in what I'm saying, but Domenico asked me to repeat the idea, and I will do so in the few minutes possible. And the issue is peace, okay? And I made a title in my slides, peace how? So there is a question, and I will show you one simple idea, I think. Thank you very much, Domenico. Can you move the slides, or I will do? Okay, fine. I will ask you to move from one slide to another. So my idea is simple, and it's not my idea. It's an idea long from the past. It will date 1795, with Immanuel Kant. He was a philosopher, a political philosopher of the period of Enlightenment. And this idea was reprised by Hans Kelsen, the philosopher you are seeing now, in a famous book of 1934. So you can see that this is not an original idea, and this is not new idea, but as I can say, and it's not an idea that that is considered from the United Nations. The idea is that relations among states are still now in a sort of Hegelian level, or is a sort of a nature condition point, if you can think about Hobbes. So one state is against another, and the only solution of conflicts of a state with another is war. Now we have, since the Second World War, we have a federal community worldwide, but the relations among states in this federal community, which is called, as you know, United Nations, is still a relation of war of a state against another. We can imagine a lot of examples of this from the Second World War to now, from the 1948, the date of birth of United Nations. We have the conflict between Israel and Palestinian people. We had the conflict in Iraq, the conflicts in Afghanistan. In all these occasions, we can see that United Nations talked about these conflicts, stated some decisions about these conflicts, but in the end, the military intervention was of some states against another states. Because, as you know, there is not an international army, for example. Okay, the idea of Kant, reprised by Kelsen in 1934, is that if we have an international order, an international complete jurisdictional order, we can solve the problem of war, because an international complete jurisdictional order will have also executive power, and will have also a military power. So it will not permit the fight of one state against another. And Domenico, you can go on. Thank you. This idea was reprised by an Italian philosopher in the 90s, as you can see in that book, L'età dei diritti, Rights Age. And the idea is that if we have a democratic model on an international scale, so an assembly of states, but an assembly with democratically elected ambassadors of all the states, and if this assembly can decide by majority, without vetoes, without conflicts, as a parliament, and if in this assembly every state is represented one by one, and all states have the same power of vote, we can have a democratic international order, which is not what we have now, because the UN Assembly is democratic in their in its rules, okay, but as you know, UN Assembly has not the power of deciding. The real power of decide the international conflicts, the international questions, is by Security Council. And as you know, Security Council actually is not a democratic order, because there is a veto power. And Security Council is an organ made by 6 states, which cannot represent all the states of the world. Okay, so the idea is that if we have a strong reform, we can have a UN assembly democratically represented, and this body can provide the task of sanctioning punishment for violators of the law, for violators of human rights, and even for violators of peace. But the assembly need an executive power, but need a jurisdictional power, and this power can be represented by the Permanent International Court, which now exists, but has not the authority all over the world. So, if we have an order with sanctioning power, democratically represented in all states participating, with an international permanent court which have jurisdiction all over the world, we can have a solution for the problem of war, because war will be no more the mean of regulating the violation of rules, of regulating the violation of human rights of some states. Okay, Domenico, thank you. You can go on. For example, and Domenico, you can go on. Thank you. For example, in this kind of order imagined by Kant or Kelsen or Bobbio, there will be no more fair war or something like that, because there will be no more the idea of war. In such an international system, there will be maybe some violence if a state breaks rules or breaks human rights. The Democratic Assembly, the International Democratic Assembly, can decide a military action against this state. Okay, but just like in one state, police can use violence to stop a killer or a thief, in an international order such as the one I described, we can have legal violent action against one state if that state is breaking the rules. If a court decide that this state is breaking the rules, and if there is an international democratic parliament in which every state is represented with the same power, decide to afford an action against the state. So we will not cancel in every sense the possibility of violence, but we can erase the idea of war of one state against another, or of some states against others, just like it was for Afghanistan, it was for Iraq, and so on. Thank you, Domenico. You can go on. We will not have the revenge of one state against another. We will not have international conflicts because these conflicts will be decided in the democratic parliament. If this is the idea, we can say that the Security Council nowadays is not the correct body as it is composed today. So a consequence of this idea is that the Security Council will be has to be reformed or replaced by a rotating executive, with every member state in equal power and without the right of veto. What I'm saying now, it's not precisely what Bobbio says in his book or what Kelsen imagines in his book. This is my idea of reforming the Security Council and of reforming the UN. And thank you, Domenico, you can go on. I have to say that UN today is very, very different from UN in 1948 when it was born. So we can and we must have the power of imagining another possible step of reforming the UN. And the issue is that we have to imagine where we want to go, where we want that UN has to go. And according to me, we will not have a democratic order if there is the Security Council in the form and in the ways that is today. Okay, this order that I exposed before does not yet exist, and this, according to me, has to be the task, the program of a revolutionary policy, and this is something that is needed urgently, because the transnational economic actors, multinationals, as we can say, are taking advantage of the fact that there is not a democratic international order. Since the end of the Second World War, the global capitalism is taking advantage of the fact that some states can move war against others, and they are taking advantage that does not exist an international system of rules respected in every part of the world. I have to say that the rules are existing. We have a Declaration of Human Rights. Every state of the world has signed the Declaration of Human Rights, so we can say that we have the Constitution. We don't have a democratic parliament today. We don't have a democratic executive power. We have an international court, but it's the court has not still now the complete jurisdiction all over the world. But from 1948 to nowadays, we are making progress, so we can imagine another progress. Okay, thank you, Domenico. If you go on. This is the other side of the problem, the negative side of the problem. Nowadays, as Ralph Darendorf said in an interview, nowadays the problem is that citizens are far from the decisions, because some international bodies like FMI, UN Council, NATO, or UN Security are not democratic and are not democratically represented. So they fail to account participation requests, the requests of the citizens, okay? And they fail to account the transparency, information, and so on. And this is a problem. Okay, Domenico, you can go on. Thank you. So, solution is, according to me, in the NGOs. If you can see all actual peaceful protest movements in every part of the world where they are or where they will be tomorrow, have some common characters, because every protesters in the world want the globalization of rights all over the world. If you think the movement Black Lives Matter don't want only rights for black people in one state of United States or another. They want rights for black people all over the world. The protest movements in, for example, in Haiti or in Lebanon or in Thailand, they want human rights, not only for themselves, but for all the citizens of the world. And the people who are members of these movements represent what Locke called social pact in his idea. So which is they are citizen, they feel to make part of one unique nation, just like we are together here in this moment. We are from every part of the world, as I can see from our surnames and so on, but we are talking about the same problems, and we want to talk peacefully of these problems, and we want the solution not only for Italy or for Indonesia or for Iraq, but for all the world. So the NGOs that are they tie people in some ideas and in some in some goals are, according to me, the future body to take this issue, this idea of UN reform. They are the only way to straighten the politicians, to reform the UN. One example, the first example is climate protests. The climate movements are the example of the fact that the problem is cannot be solved, sorry, in one state or another, but it's a global problem that has to be solved in a global democratic way. Thank you, Domenico. You can go on. And so all these protest movements today are have two common issues. Are led by young people, very young people, and they are led by social media and highly performant technological means. And these are two features very, very important. But there is a problem. All these movements are leaderless, and mostly they don't have a really clear designed program to issue their requests to politicians. According to me, this situation is similar to the no global movement of the 90s. A lot of protests in most parts of the world, but not one unique program and not an idea of how to call to the politicians to change facts. Okay, and according to me, the idea of reforming UN is, or it can be, the program which can unite all these NGOs, all these movements, and all these protest movements to have a program which can be shown to our leaders, and we can ask to our leaders to reform UN, to erase the Security Council in the way it is today, and to ask for the institution of a way to respect human rights all over the world. Thank you, Domenico. You can go on. I want only to show that it's very, very significant, according to me, that 10–20% of population in the developed countries are in no-profit associations, against the 1–2% of people that are members of political parties. So the real representation of political ideas interesting all the people all over the world is taken by NGOs and no-profit associations. So according to me, associations are today the most direct expression of popular ideas, but they fail to have a program, a clearly defined program. And I assume that the idea of Kant, of Kelsen, of Bobbio, of reforming the international democratic system can be this kind of program. Thank you, Domenico. You can go on. Okay, you can go on. You can read maybe after if you want this particular and another program, another goal. Thank you, Domenico. You can go on. Another goal that all movements, all NGOs, according to me, has to take in their programs is to fight sovereignism and so to grow representative power of the international bodies. According to me, every NGOs that act in an international contest has to fight sovereignism and has to ask for growing representative power of citizens in the international bodies. As you can see, the UN in the 1948 and the FMI in the 1946 and the European Union in 1992 are international bodies that now fail of representative power. The European Parliament, for example, was born in 1979, but has not a decisional power, just like the UN Assembly. They are quite sufficient democratic orders, but they have not a decisional power. So we have to make that in this kind of parliaments there will be the international power of deciding democratically, and we have to reform Security Council, and thanks to the NGOs we have to fix one real program of reforming UN to take to our political leaders in every part of the world. One unique program in every part of the world, if it's possible. And this is the way to fight a war and to have the respect of human rights. I know that this is an utopia, as I presented, but I want to say that in time in which Kant wrote Perpetual Peace, or in times in which Kelsen wrote his opera, as you can see, it was Nazi times. In that times, something like the UN was an utopia. So we have to rebuild the power of utopia, according to me. And Domenico, I think I end. This is a bibliography in the Google Drive. I put the summary of my article, which is called "From Global Markets to Global Rights." And so, if someone of you wants the entire article, which is in English, but it's I have to say it's a little complicated because it is in a technical philosophy language. Okay, if you want, you can ask me by mail or by Domenico. And now, Domenico, I think I was in time, only 15 minutes, and I suppose we can talk about this.
Surely. So we can open the floor to question, interaction, also doubt, comments. Today wants to be very like interactive. So if someone of you also want to raise some points, discuss with Francesco, please go ahead. In the meanwhile, I'll share the document, the article that Francesco wrote regarding the global markets and global rights. In
the Google Drive, there is a short version. If you want the entire version, I will put Domenico in the Google Drive together, okay. And so everyone, if he wants to read, okay.
I don't know if there are questions, points. Really feel free.
Okay.
Also, if you go, yeah.
Yes. Hello.
Hi, Joanne.
Francesco, yes. Thank you very much for this great presentation. I think that you think that your presentation is an utopia, but I think that we really need this kind of utopia to make things move. And I really enjoyed your presentation, your way of seeing things, because as the world is changing, we have also to change our policies, because there are some global issues that we were not aware in the past. So as structures are moving, we should move with the problems that the world is now knowing. So I think that, yes, I think that, yes, we really need to increase reflection on the restructuration of the United Nations, because it is an old structure. It cannot go like that. And yes, the more and more we are talking about global issues, yes, the civil society organization are involved, yes, to make things change, yeah, for the good of the human being and also for our future, because we are all concerned. Yes, now should we put aside, or should we just give to the civil society organization just maybe a status of observatory, just to observe, to assist in some in meetings, just to observe. It's sure that the United Nations is doing, they are doing a lot of things to involve the civil society in by helping, by making them, giving their position and all these things. But I think, yes, the reflection related to the restructuration of the United Nations is really important. And as African, because we have always, Africans are also too much concerned about, yes, the structure of the United Nations. So I'm not talking about the civil society organizations that are already doing a lot of work worldwide, but as the countries or the continent that are represented as the continent that should have veto without the United Nations. Africa is not represented, whereas Africa is an important continent, and we have all seen, we are all aware of all the issues that we are talking about related to climate change and all these things. So it affects the most Africa. So now many Africans, they think that we have, for instance, to review. Many Africans think that we have to review the structure and the members that have the right of veto. Because if you see very well also, the many conflicts that are ongoing in Africa, sometimes you don't have the consent of Africans. If I take, for instance, the conflict in Libya, so the Africans were not directly involved in that decision. So now France took that decision, yes. So we have some member of Security Council within the UN. So when, for instance, a country that represents maybe a continent that is not really too much concerned about an issue that is ongoing in another continent, you will not really pay too much attention. I'm saying it because the problem that was triggered in Libya, that we all know, maybe it is because also there's not a place for Africa within the UN Security Council. So this is a main problem. And now we have migrations. So it is just after, because after that France decided, yes, to destroy the regime of Gaddafi. Now we are in a situation, so France had his position saying that it is not a democratic regime and all these things. But now, as African country, they don't have a seat in the UN Security Council. They were not really able to do something. So now we are in a situation where we have a lot of migration. Now, countries from Europe are asking to limit migration and all these things. So we have all these things that we have also to take into account. And I really share your view when you think that it is important to review the structure of the United Nations, because for me, it is important, yes, as you said, to involve and to give more power to civil society organization, but they have also to improve the structuration and also the strategic framework. But it's also really important to see the case of Africa within the UN Security Council. So thank you very much. Maybe you can share also your thoughts about this. Thank you.
Thank you for your intervention, because according to me, you focus the real point. We have a problem today. On one way, we have some institutions, some international institutions that are very far from citizens, because they are not representative of citizens. For example, as you say, the international institutions like Security Council is not representative of African citizens. From one way, we have lack of representative power. On the other way, we have people who feel far from these institutions, and so they are starting to have doubt, to have fear, to hate the international institutions. So we have 2 points that are not talking, and they are going every day far one from another. If the international institutions will be representative of citizens, maybe citizens feel more confident to point some issues to these institutions. And as you say, the problem can be solved if we rebuild the power of political imagination. I spoke of Kant, of Kelsen, or Locke. They had a great power of imagination. They imagined what we have now, and in the case of Kant imagined something that it's not really here at the moment. So if we rebuild this power of imagination, we can, for example, imagine that in the Security Council will be one member for every continent of the world. One from South America, one from South America, one from Africa, one from Oceania, one from Asia, and so on. 7 or 8 members in the Security Council on one part. On the other part, I imagine a UN Assembly in which every state maybe will have power of voting in proportion to the population, for example. If you imagine this idea, it's only one of the lot of examples that we can have. If you imagine this situation, which is similar to the U.S. Parliament, right? The Senato on one way and the other camera on the other way. Okay, one represented by geographic situation, the other represented by proportion to population. It will be more democratic than it is today, surely. And every region of the world, every area of the world will be represented in some way. We can imagine that the representative of continents in the Security Council will be in turn in the different years. So, for example, Africa representative is Libya on 5 years, and after it will be South Africa, and after it will be Kenya, and so on for the other countries of the other continents. But I just imagine it, what I'm talking to you right now while Joel was speaking. So if some brains will meet together and imagine of the future, we can have a lot of other ideas, more powerful and better than mine of now. But what I am saying is that I don't read and I don't hear of no one imagining of reforming UN in the last 20 years. It's like UN is what it is, and it cannot change. But it's not really so. Everything can change. Everything change in the history, but we have to point the change. We have to issue the change in some way. So maybe the idea that I just shown now, it's not the perfect idea. Maybe some other examples are better than mine. No problem. We can talk about this. We can reflect about this. But the only the one and only sure idea is that as UN is today, it's not going well, and we don't have to fight UN in order to cancel UN. This is what is worrying me now, because every protest movement is taking steps against UN, because UN is not representative. But if we go in that way, we will have we will have only sovereignisms. We will back to the situation before the Second World War and before the First World War, and it's not a good situation. We have to build a strong idea of reforming before people wants not to reform but to erase every international order. And according to me, if we erase every international order, the situation of human rights in all over the world will be very, very bad, and surely will be awful. So I really agree, Joel, on what you say about the presence of Africa in the democratic institutions, in the democratic and international institution. But I have to say that only for for example, even India or Brazil are not represented, and they are powerful and most populating states that need to be represented in an international order. So we have to imagine the change. If there are other questions, I hope,
yes,
Joel,
yes,
I answered your.
So please go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I totally agree with Francesco saying that yeah, the idea is not to destroy the UN, because the UN is already playing an important role in various aspects, humanitarian development and all these things. The UN is really important, yes, for peacekeeping, and it's doing amazing role with a lot of civil society organization on the ground. But when I was talking about Africa, so Brazil is a country, India is a country. I'm talking about a continent.
Right.
So Europe is in the UN Security Council. America is in the Security Council. Asia, represented by China, is
and
in
Russia.
the security. Yes, you understand what I mean? So I'm not talking about a country rotational. I'm talking about continent. Because when we are talking about the global issues, we are the continent that is the most vulnerable. One of the continent is Africa.
Sure.
Even when we are talking about when we are talking about the insecurity, violent extremism, climate change, and all this is Africa. And yes, the global community understood that Africa, we should put an action and a focus on Africa. So I think that the good way for also the UN is to review. So I'm talking of a continent that must have a seat. It must maybe one country, yes, like other continents. Yes, I think this will be a more representative, and will also, I think, will be a greater step in solving all these issues that we are facing, because we cannot talk about Africa saying that we have to maybe there are people vulnerable. We have in Africa, we have the second length of the health, that is the Congo Basin, that is really affected by the climate change. But we don't have a kind of seat for that continent in the Security Council, and all the effort. And I should say that I think that Africa is one of the continents where the efforts really of the UN is really focused, because there are many issues and all this. So maybe we might say that maybe African continent or the Africa countries don't contribute too much in the UN functioning. Maybe that may be an argument by some country, but I think if we really want to tackle the global issue that we are facing, we have to see things in another way to help that we have a kind of structure. I think reflection should start. Reflection should start. And yes, with dialogue, with communications, yes, things can be done. So because we should not only talk about things, we should not only talk about Africa when it is about to giving help and all these things. Africa needs also to be in decision making here, and to be able to have a word. But I'm not saying that, I want us to be really clear. I'm not saying that the UN is not playing its role. No, no, no. I'm just saying that as we can understand maybe the structure of 1945, but now things have changed and moving. And we know that to adapt ourselves to the changes, it is important also to review the culture, because talking about the change needs or require to address the problem, not only of the strategic framework, but also about to rethink the question related to the culture, and also to the structure. So it should be a process, I think, that should start, even though it will not happen now, but it should start. Thank you.
Yeah, you said something that I forgot, and it was something very, very important. The structure of Security Council is the one it was in the 1945, after the Second World War, and it was a structure thought by the countries which won the war. In fact, in the Security Council, there is a seat for China, Russia, United States, England, and France. Why? Because they were the countries that won the war in the Second World War. And so it's something that is completely, totally against the actual situation, is something that is completely anti-historical, because the Second World War was 70 years ago. And this is the reason why Africa or South America or other countries are not present in the Security Council. But you said that Africa is a continent, so it is a lot more important that as a seat in the Security Council, and I completely agree to you. I make another step further. If you think the first 5 army producer in the world are members of the Security Council. The first 5 or 6 or 7 producers of weapons are members of the Security Council. Every state of the Security Council is a developed state. Actually, it is so. Russia, China, United States, and Europe, represented by France or England, are developed states, and some continents like Africa or South America, which are the less developed area of the world, are not represented in the Security Council. South America and Africa are the continent of the biggest problem about climate, as Joel said, and they are not represented in the Security Council. These are not coincidence. These are not coincidence. This is all the situation today is a consequence of the fact that Security Council is made in a way which reflects the countries that won the Second World War. But we are not in the time of Second World War. Nazism was fighted, so we have to make another step of thinking the relations among states in the world of today, and we are 50, 70 years in late, because we have an organization of 1948. So we are 70, 50 years late to imagine a new world, a new organization of the world. And in this new organization of the world, it is imperative that Africa has a seat. It is imperative that South America has a seat, because they are the most populated area of the world, and they are the most damaged area of the world in issues like climate or poverty and so on.
Okay, dears, what an amazing discussion. I was very enjoying your exchange. Unfortunately,
excuse me, Domenico. Only to conclude, all these issues that we are talking about are tied together. There is only one issue. It is only one consequence of an order stated 50, 70 years ago, and we have to change this order, not because it was not fair, because at that time maybe it was fair, but now it is not representative of the situation of the world.
Thank you for this final statement, and I invite you to engage the discussion further into the Discord channel, and also to eventually put your points into the final shared document that in a few I will share in the chat.